Finally. Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries, the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, across the web, and especially on YouTube. I think I'm the most censored one too. um, again, thank you for joining us. I'm trying to wait and see what's going on with Greggory Mannarino. I know this morning I've been having a lot of issues connecting with StreamYard and connecting with YouTube. So we're gonna talk about some issues. Hopefully, Greg will make his way in the booth, and then we can chop it up on the economic issues, economic matters, and all of that stuff like that. But I did see something immediately this morning when I got up to read the news, and it says explosion in Russian city center caused by missile, governor says. And in red, going across the screen, is being reported from Moscow. So this is breaking, and this is very important. Ukraine attacked Russian city with missile. This is what it says. Ukraine attacked Russian city with missile. And I'm reading it for the first time with you all, so bear with me. The Russian military condemns the incident in Taganrog as a terrorist attack on civilians. The Russian Defense Ministry has acknowledged that a missile struck the southwest port city of Taganrog on Friday, calling the incident a terrorist attack by Ukraine. The city center was hit by a major blast on Friday, with at least 15 people injured, according to local authorities. Ukrainian forces used a repurposed missile from a Soviet-era S-200 anti-air defense system to target the city, the military said. The missile was intercepted by Russian forces, but fragments ended up falling on the city, it added. Now listen, we'll read the rest of it. As a result of the terrorist act committed by the Kyiv regime, several buildings were damaged, and there are also casualties among civilians, the statement read. Footage from the scene circulating online shows that the missile left a large crater in the ground, with several buildings and vehicles damaged by the blast. The missile contained spherical pieces of shrapnel, a trademark of S-200 anti-aircraft munitions, and one video shows several of the steel balls being found by witnesses at the site. Now, there's a few things to unpack with this. Hopefully, as a matter of fact, let me hit Greg up real quick and tell him we're live on the air. Try to get him. We've been having problems with the Yahoo accounts. Not as you saw yesterday on the show when we were talking with CIA analyst Larry Johnson, and he said that he didn't get the links that we had sent out multiple times. And so it's a concerted effort by YouTube and these other things, and especially StreamYard. They have been interrupting the show, pausing the show, and on my end, I've been seeing things that other people who watched the show told me that they didn't see, and vice versa. So I want to apologize to you in advance for any of this inconvenience. I have absolutely no control over this. And I also want to ask YouTube, would you please restore the 100 subscribers that subscribed to the channel yesterday? Would you please restore them? Because now we're in a deficit of what we came with before yesterday. Okay? Would you please do that? Now, give me 1 second. Let me give me a second. Let me contact them. Give me a second. They're doing everything they can to prevent this show from growing. To enter the booth. All right, let's see. Boom. So until he gets the messages, and I'll send it back again in a few minutes because guests have not been getting their messages and their links to the show. And I only found out in the last minute. I can show you some personal emails and stuff but it would be a breach of trust, which I will not do that with anybody who has been a guest or who show love to the channel. I won't do that. So let's unpack something in this while we wait for Greg to get the message. All right. Now, Russia said that it intercepted the S-200 anti-aircraft system, the missile, right? And that the fragments that broke up landed on a building. But I have something to say about that. If that is the case, then why? Let's read this last part, okay? Footage from the scene circulating online shows that the missile left a large crater in the ground. So if the missile left a large crater in the ground, then the missile had to be intact or pretty much as a whole, right? Because if you broke the missile up in fragments, it wouldn't leave a huge crater in the ground, okay? So I don't think they're on the up and up with this one, you know? They could be, I could be wrong, but I don't think they're reporting this as it should. Now, let's go back to something. And I have a message in the comments. Hold on one second. Remember, there's a lag time. Oh, my guy's he's in the building. Let's see. Spazzy Baby. Astral Atmosphere brought me here. Shout out to you. Shout out to my guy, Astral Atmosphere. Thank you for joining. And tell him I say thanks for sending you, okay? We're waiting for our guest, Greggory Mannarino. In the last 2 days, we've been having problems with links, with emails, and these things are not a coincidence, okay? So let's be patient, and hopefully he'll get the message and he'll join us on the link. But let's go back to something as I was talking. There is no way that the missile could have been shot down and broken into fragments, and yet they just reported that the missile left a crater in the ground. This is what the Russians reported. Footage from the scene circulating online shows that the missile, not the fragments of the missile, okay, but the missile itself left a large crater in the ground with several buildings and vehicles damaged by the blast. So fragments would not create such a blast that would affect an area like that, right? That must be an intact missile or a mostly intact missile, okay? I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a military man or military mind. I'm just telling you, I'm dealing with common sense. And as I tell you, when the West reports things, these people have contempt for you. They don't believe that you will think this stuff out and reason and come to a logical conclusion. And as I've been watching, and as I've been reading, Russia has been mostly honest about the situation that is happening on the battleground. But this one right here, it doesn't pass the smell test. Okay, so that S-200 missile must have gotten through because it left a crater. Plus, it caused damage to vehicles and buildings, not a building, but buildings, right? By the blast. So the blast must have been so tremendous, so powerful that the aftershock, the after effects caused that to happen, right? Now, do we blame Ukraine for doing that? No. Why? Because if Russia would have done what I proposed that they did, this would not have happened in the way that it happened. The Russian officials are of the mind that you can reason with the West. Again, let us use common sense. If you have had a person in authority, the seat of authority, for roughly 100 years, and you've had his allies for the previous 100 years, and another ally for the previous 100 years, and another ally for the previous 100 years, as the world power, you know, we had Belgium, France, we've had Germany, we had the United States, we have the UK, we have all of these former colonial nations which stood as the global hegemon for decades upon decades, and they just passed the title down to the next one, right? Well, if it's this case and you've ruled, and you see that you're sputtering out, you see a giant power over the horizon, China, challenging your supremacy. You see Russia not conforming to the plans that you made for Russia. And not only is Russia whipping Ukraine, but Russia is whipping the entire Western military industrial complex and NATO, the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. So with that in mind, and you've heard and read government papers, think tank papers of their plan to balkanize Russia and to siphon off its resources and to prevent Russia from being a global or regional power. How can you think that you can reason with stuff that has been ingrained in the leadership and the think tanks and the governments that preceded it? How do you think that you can reason with it right now when it is waging a covert and even now an overt war on you in your Slavic brothers' lands and in what was traditional Russian lands? How could you think that? It is insanity to think, see, they're doing things over and over. Our Western partners, our Western friends. Listen, if a person has shown you who they are, believe them. This is not a one-off thing. America has encroached upon Russia's sphere of influence in the former Soviet territories. At one point saying that there should not be a Warsaw Pact and saying there was no need for it, and that NATO was offering friendship to Russia. And then Russia bit the bullet and accepted that. The NATO, under U.S. auspices, enlarged and then acquired former Warsaw Pact nations into NATO. If a person shows you who they are, believe them. Some of the Russian leaders want to be integrated into the West, even while they see that the West does not like them. How can you believe that you can be a friend of somebody that is trying to kill you, destroy your national security, your national sovereignty, and erase your people? So the more Russia allows the West to get away with this stuff, the more they will intensify it. I have been telling you this, and on every occasion I have been proven true and right on this situation. If Russia does not strike the hand that arms the puppet will continue to strike Russia with the weapons supplied to it and the information and the data and the targeting that is supplied to it by the hand behind the scene. There's an old saying, cut off the snake's head, kill the snake, right? Cut off the hand of the puppeteer, the puppet makes no more motion. Just like Russia understands militarily that NATO is not a match for it on the battlefield. NATO understands that it is no longer a match for Russia on the battlefield. But to know that and to understand that, and to not use the available means to protect the sovereignty of your territory and the national security of your people, will show that you have been derelict in your duties as leader. And Dmitry Medvedev scream out that if you strike Crimea, we will strike you, and we will strike back in such a way that that you would never know, you would never do it again, and that we would not only strike Ukraine, but we would strike its backers. And then when Ukraine strikes Crimea, we reserve the right to respond. Hell, you should have responded immediately and not just in Ukraine. I'm not advocating the stoking of tension in war. I'm not advocating war or conflict. What I'm advocating is a method to de-escalate the crisis. Because the West only knows escalation, right? Have you ever been around a bully and you've measured that bully, and that bully continues to pick with everybody, and as they look at you, they see something's different in you, right? And so they don't bother you for a while. They just do things around you to test your mental. Once they see that you might be able to handle them. You might be able to beat them, but you're not willing to go through the fire. You're not willing to stand up to them. What does the bully do? Then starts picking on you. They know the capability of you. They know that if you had the resolve that you could beat them, but if you continue to exercise threats with no action behind it, that will not hinder the bully. That would only make you look weak in the eyes of everybody surrounding. That's what's going on with Russia right now. Russia attacks ports in Odessa and the surrounding region. Ukraine just attacked the Russian port. Now, what's the significance of this? How did they attack the port? Huh? Ukraine didn't do this. Yeah, probably they did, but listen to what I'm saying. Ukraine did it, but Ukraine didn't do it. Because we know that America has openly stated that they supply targeting data to Ukrainian forces, right? If this is the case, and it is, and this missile hit Russian territory, and it did, we can see, hold on, this may be him right here, hold on, 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Okay. And come on, StreamYard, stop this. StreamYard is tripping. Anyway, and I can show you I have excellent internet connection. Excellent. And they're doing this. But anyway, let's look at this. Because we're going to shake, rock, rattle, and roll, even if they prevent him from getting the links. We're going to still shake, rattle, rock, and roll, okay? Because this stuff is easy. Common sense, when you start using common sense, it's an easy thing. So listen, if Ukraine did it, and they probably did it, with the help, I'm talking embedded soldiers of the UK and the US, guess what happens? They are just a puppet. If I plan a murder for hire, and I go on the street and tell somebody, hey, listen, you go, and I got an enemy over here. I want you to firebomb their house. I'm going to give you the Molotov cocktail, all of them that you need, right? I'm going to tell you when they're at home. Now, everybody knows that I have a beef with that person, right? And then once you firebomb their home, I'll pay you X amount. Well, you see, I need my bills paid right now because I'll be evicted tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to pay your bills. I'm going to pay your car notes. I'm going to do this. But you got to go and throw those Molotov cocktails through that window of that house of the person that I'm after. Okay. Now, if that takes place, right, the police will arrest that person. But guess who they get as the ringleader? Me. Because I planned it, I supplied the money and the munitions for the act to be executed by the puppet, right? It's the same here. Targeting data being provided by the US, the UK, and NATO. The repurposed missiles being upgraded by Ukraine, NATO, the US, and UK. The air defense forces that used an air defense missile to strike land targets was embedded. And we know because the United States said that they have military advisors embedded in the air defense forces and all throughout the Ukrainian government structure and military structure. So we know that. All right. Now, if they struck Russian territory, and they did, is that not an act of war by the United States, by the UK, and by NATO? I'm asking. And just like I'm asking, the average person on the streets in Russia should be asking that too. And if this is the case, what should be Russia's response. Now you're talking about the territorial integrity and the security of the Russian Federation, right? And as the National Security Council members, and as the prime minister, and as the defense minister, and as the foreign minister, and as the president of the Russian Federation, it is your duty, your paramount duty, to secure the livelihoods of your citizens that reside in and around the Russian Federation, right? Now, we've seen that the West knows one thing: escalation. And guess what happens? This was no coincidence that this happens on Friday. This happens after Russia's meeting with African nations, right? This happens after Russia's targets bases in Odessa. You have a desperate power or desperate powers lashing out because they're losing on every front. And it happens on Friday, where the weekend comes in, and guess what happens? That gets scrubbed from the MSM, right? That is not a big deal because it's not getting a lot of reporting on it because it happened at the end of the week. So this is lashing out. So the options, there are multiple options, but as the Russian Federation's president, a main option should be is to secure the livelihood and of the people of the Russian Federation and the territorial integrity and national security and sovereignty of that state, which means that now, since it has been plain to see that Ukraine has struck civilian targets, listen to me good, this is very important. These were not military assets. They were civilian targets, purposely and willingly struck, which amounts to a war crime and crimes against humanity, which when you put that jacket on, you also have to put that jacket on the US, the UK, and NATO. They are war criminals for doing that, for purposely targeting offenders, right? The same thing they were screaming about a few months ago. They've just done. So they are war criminals because they've committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. So all of their so-called what is it called? The facade of being about international law, all of that goes out the window, right? So now Russia has to be more concerned about the security of its people than the security of the Ukrainian people. And the deals that it made not to strike decision-making centers, certain decision-making centers in and around Ukraine. Because the agreement that some say happened was that the weaponry that the West provided would not be used on Russian territory, or Russia would escalate against surrounding nations and NATO groupings and NATO decision-making centers. Is that not right? So that has been scrubbed with the bridge bombing, with the bridge missile strike, right? With the strikes in Volgograd, is it Volgograd or Volgograd? And now with this strike here. So with this, the US, the UK, NATO, and Ukraine have abdicated. They have abdicated their virtues, right, of not targeting people that are civilian and civilian centers. So now Russia can go full steam ahead without worrying about the perceived look that may strike some of its allies and supporters. They should immediately contact all of the global South leaders, talk to them and show them what took place, and then try to secure their support for what's coming. And then they should move with the power of Thor. Because if you don't, guess what happens? More escalation. And then you have a situation where now you're on the threshold of open war because of that constant escalation by the West. They continue to step over the bounds. Now, here's another significant thing that happened. Let me see if I'm waiting for Greg. You know, I'm thinking Greg might have got these times mixed up because he just moved to Florida and he had the times, he may have had the time zone mixed up. And thinking because the last time we did it on Eastern time. And so he's moved to Florida and he wanted to do it 12 Eastern, which is 11 here. Okay. So Greg may have made an error because he's just moved to the state of Florida. And so I'm going to try to stay on a little bit, a while, and maybe at 12 my time, he'll jump on. Maybe that is the case. I'm thinking that is the case because sometimes you get mixed up with the times. And I'm hoping that it is not a case of where they're still blocking the links and blocking the emails. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping the case is that he has made a mistake on the timing, because that is a reasonable thing to do when you move from one state to another state. Okay, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and we'll try to wait for him. Now, listen, and I haven't forgotten what I was talking about. Now I haven't forgotten where I was. So, what is another significant meaning behind the use of the S-200 air defense systems to strike Russia? Remember, Russia warned that if the Storm Shadow missile was used to strike Russian territory, Russia would lash out against suppliers of it, right? So, come on, man, you got to be kidding me doing this buffering and stuff on this end. So listen, they tried to use the Storm Shadow missile multiple occasions, multiple times, to try to get through the Russian territory. And it got to the outskirts and they hit the bridge, I believe. But they haven't been able to. I think Great Britain and the United States pulled back a little bit behind the scene because they believe that if that Storm Shadow was used to hit Russian territory, that Russia would strike out militarily against them and strike hard. So instead of using the Storm Shadow missile, because remember, all you've read and all you've heard in the last week is the use of the so-called British-made Storm Shadow missile and the French version of it that would be supplied to Ukraine, and how Ukraine was so-called effectively using the Storm Shadow missile. And shout out to my guy, Astral Atmosphere, who's in the building. Anyway, so remember, that's all you heard for the last week or two. And then when they hit the bridge with it, Russia gave an ominous warning about that situation. And they still have not responded yet to the bridge being hit. So I think in their minds and in their meetings, they realized and they thought, well, maybe if we give this and we give the go-ahead to Ukraine to go and strike this Russian territory right here with the Storm Shadow, that would be a step too far. So I believe what they did was pull back a little bit and give the targeting data to UK, US, and NATO forces who are embedded with the Ukrainian air defense forces for plausible deniability, because they can say, well, Ukraine did it. Those are Ukrainian air defense brigades, right? But we know that they're manned by US, UK, and NATO forces too. But it offers a little bit of plausible deniability to the West. So the targeting data, the time and locations for the strikes was all provided by the US, the UK, and NATO. Remember on one of my shows about, I think it was 2 shows ago, I told you about it. And then later on it was reported. If this is the case, and it is, most likely it is the case, they pulled back the Storm Shadow because it was getting knocked out of the air and only 1 or 2 were getting through. But they felt that after hitting that bridge, that this may be a step a little bit too far, and Russia would be forced to respond to the provocations, the open provocations by the UK and the US and NATO. So they had their embedded soldiers in the UK Air Defense Force to target that area with a upgraded S-200 air defense missiles so that they can have plausible deniability. And all of the blame goes down on Ukraine. So if the missile gets shot down, no sweat on their back. No more embarrassment with the Storm Shadow. No more embarrassment by the M777s. No more embarrassment on the HIMARS, right? If the missile gets shot down, it's just another Ukrainian antiquated missile that has just been knocked out of the air. The missile gets through. NATO, all of NATO gets kudos and score points, but they have plausible deniability in all of the retribution on the Ukrainian air defense forces. You understand? So they did it on a Friday to see what Russia's response would be over the weekend. And if Russia does not mount a strong and stern response, and I'm not talking about a volley of missiles here and there, watch the escalation continues. Watch, and we'll refer back to this video when it does. Now, again, everybody, for those of you who are now joining us, we're talking over news issues. We're supposed to have Greggory Mannarino on, but remember that just like when I had Larry Johnson on yesterday, I had to send him the link 2 or 3 more times. He didn't get the first 2 or 3 links that I sent them the days before. And so they were blocking the links and the emails. So I'm hoping that this is not the case with Yahoo, with Gmail, and because I sent them from different platforms. And I'm hoping this is not the case with StreamYard blocking the link. And I'm hoping it's just a mix-up of time with Greggory Mannarino because he just moved from one state to the state of Florida, and he could have the times mixed up by an hour, okay? He was used to Eastern time. We're on Central time. We're an hour behind Eastern time. So I'm going to talk about the news for the next 20, 30 minutes, hoping that he will then see, oh, yeah, it's time. I made a mistake. Let me try to jump on. And talk to the people. So we're going to keep pushing, okay? Now, Spazzy Baby, you're right. Hold on 1 second, Spazzy Baby. So hold on 1 second. You give me a second. And even though this is your first time, Spazzy, boom. You are now a shooter. You have your wrench, okay? If Astro sent you here, you have your wrench. so you can monitor the chat and everything. So now let's go to something. Again, as I said, when we read the article, Ukraine targeted Russian city with missile. This is according to Moscow. And Moscow said, and normally, again, Moscow in the reporting from the defense ministry and the reporting from the State Department in Moscow, the foreign ministry, normally they are on point with what they say. But they're not 100% on the up and up either, you see. I mean, they do a better job than the West, but they're not 100% on the up and up because in this article, as I read to you all, they said that they hit the S-200 missile and broke it up into fragments. And that would be fine if the report stopped right there. But as the article ends, it ends like this. Footage from the scene circulating online shows that the missile left a crater in the ground with several buildings and vehicles damaged by the blast. Stop right there. It's an article behind that. I mean, it's a sentence behind that, but that is the one that I want to focus on right there. Footage from the scene circulating online shows that the missile, not missile fragments, but missile, left a large crater in the ground. So that must have been a huge impact, not multiple impacts from fragments, but one giant impact, which had to be made by a giant projectile, right? And it says, which left a large crater in the ground with several buildings and vehicles damaged by the blast. Now, Blasts by fragments usually does not damage multiple buildings, not a building, but buildings, as it says, plural, and vehicles. So this shows us that one of the S-200s did get through without being fragmented. Or if it was hit, it was knocked off course, or maybe lost a wing or propeller, but it continued on. Okay? But the reporting states that missile, not fragments from the missile. This is what I'm telling you. When you hear these reports and when you read these things, analyze what they are saying to you, because some of the state of you does not make sense. Okay? All right. And it says the missile, again, it reiterates this in the following sentence. The missile contained spherical pieces of shrapnel, a trademark of S-200 anti-aircraft munitions, and one video shows several of the steel bolts being found by witnesses at the site. So the missile fragments that were hit by our air defense system, it says the missile, meaning an intact projectile that is used to bomb whatever it's used for, to bomb something. That's what missiles are for. They're not there to dance with. They're not there to fix you dinner. They're there to kill and destroy, right? The missile contained. So they're telling you that that missile, that projectile that got through had projectiles inside of it. So that shows you that an entire missile got through, okay? Caught off guard. That's what it was, caught off guard. So Russia's response should have been quick, swift, and decisive. And let me tell you something. From this point on, the National Security Council of the Russian Federation should already have the responses in hands and give the go-ahead. Hey, if this happens, this takes place. If this happens, this takes place. You don't need orders from to go if this happens. I have delegated the command response to the units that are granted the authority to respond to individual acts or multiple acts against Russian territory. And I would mount the rostrum and I would talk in Russian, and then I would speak a little English to let them know that I'm serious, and tell them from this point on, there will be no second thoughts. There will be no planning. There will be no waiting around. With every escalation, it will be met with a severe escalation, but not just upon Ukraine, because Ukraine is the puppet. The escalations of the matter will be met with escalation against those who are the puppeteers of the puppet. And then I would tell them, and you take that how you want to, from this point on, if our national security red lines are crossed, we will cross 3 of yours. And when we cross them, don't call talking about negotiating and trying to talk. No. The time for that is before you escalate. You know what the West does? The West will spit in your face, kick you in your shin, slap you, and punch you in the eye. And then when they see that you can take that, and then you're about to haul off and counterattack, guess what they'll do? They'll start talking about de-escalation. Remember when they assassinated the second most popular person in the Islamic Republic of Iran, General Soleimani? Immediately. So this lets you know that this was a concerted effort by not just America, but by her allies. Yeah, America gets credit for the assassination, but the European Union, the political wing of the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, or NATO, they were all in cahoots too, because it wasn't 20 minutes after the assassination took place that all of them were screaming about de-escalation. De-escalation. Go back and look at it. Go back and look at it. Hold on. Let's not be brash. Let's not be irrational. Let's de-escalate and let's talk. No. The moment for talking was before you committed this act of war, this transgression, this great transgression. I want to pose to you all something. General Soleimani was the second most popular person in Iran, second only to the Ayatollah, right? And a lot of reports came out that he was being put in a position to come up and succeed and become the Ayatollah, right? He was supposed to be the person that comes up right after, like if there's a death or if the Ayatollah decides to sit himself down. Soleimani was supposed to, from multiple reports, was supposed to take that position. Now, do you think that if Iran would have assassinated, and this is only for thinking purposes, YouTube, this is only for learning purposes. We are not advocating the assassination of anyone. We're not advocating war. We are not advocating violence in the least, neither against an ethnicity, a race, a gender, or anything. I have to say this because if I don't say this, those old advocates, and I get so many warnings by them behind closed doors about something. I'm like, what? So let me tell you something before I go further on this. I'm gonna tell you how picky they are with me, okay? So the other day I did a video. And on the video, I think this was the video before I interviewed Larry Johnson yesterday. It was whatever show I did before Larry Johnson. And my son did the new artwork for the platform, okay? And matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on one second. Let me see. Give me a second. Let's see something. That work right there, that artwork right there. That's when that premiered. Okay, I did the show, and I played this music while waiting in the background as the intro was over. I wanted to give somebody a little good music while I'm getting all the stuff together as we go live. And I played. Let's see, what was it? I played this clip, I believe. Hold on one second. I don't know what's going on. This one, man, these guys suck. No, that's not it. Night driving. That's what it was. It was night driving. Hold on one second. Hold on. I mean, some laid back music. I want you to just go with me for a minute. Just be patient and just listen. I want to show you something. So remember this clip right here. Just listen to it for a second. Okay. I'm gonna pause it right here. Okay, I played that clip. This is a copyright-free music provided by YouTube and by StreamYard, just for the intro. And they demonetized the video and told me that I infringed upon copyright. And I'm like, huh? What? This is copyright-free. What do you mean? Well, we think it's a copyright infringement. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Seriously. If you want to demonetize me, if you want to just do that, but don't play around with these games, man. And man, I'm telling you, this generation and these people here, man, they could not have come up in the 70s. I'm telling you this. They could not have done it. These are wusses. Anything that you say that they don't agree with or they don't like, they spaz out. I mean, man. But listen, as I was talking to you all, and I'm getting a message here. Hold on one second. I'm getting a message. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I got another message from somebody else. And it'll be a part of the channel members. I got something for you. I'll be dropping a video either today or tomorrow, something like that for you guys, God willingly. So again, what were we talking about? I talk on so many subjects. We were talking about Iran, right? Man, I'm sharp. Right back to it. So now let us look at this. Joe Biden was the second in command or the second in charge. No, I'm sorry. Pence was, excuse me. Pence was during Donald Trump presidency, excuse me. Now, a lot of conservatives say, well, Trump never started a war. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But it was through the maneuvering and the backdoor dealing that it did not openly escalate towards an all-out war. What is killing the second most powerful and second most influential person in a nation is if that's not an act of war? That's brushing aside the significance of the person that you assassinated. So I put these things out there because I call an ace and a spade. Just like I go in on Obama and I go in on Biden, I go in on Trump too. And I go in on, man, this guy here in office is just a shell of somebody. But anyway, now look, what if Iran would have assassinated Vanderlei or Joseph Borrell or the Prime Minister of France or the second in command in the UK, or God forbid somebody in power in the United States? What if that would have happened? Do you think, especially listen to what took place? The U.S. requested his help. He had been helping the United States for the longest, behind closed doors, even as they talked about him. It was his maneuvering and his planning that stopped these groups that were getting ready to push the United States out, and they were targeting the United States and the UK. But it was his help that sedated them and said, hold on one second, maybe we can help them and then they can leave without so much bloodshed. So the money was the one behind that. They don't want you to know that. So the United States under Donald Trump requested Soleimani's visit to Iraq. This is a fact that gets left out. So on the arrival of Soleimani, they assassinated him. They didn't shoot him. They blew him to smithereens like cowards with a drone strike. And Donald Trump says, I authorized that, right? He openly said he authorized that. Now, what if the shoe was on the other foot? Do you believe that the UK, Brussels, Berlin, and all of these other capitals in Europe would have been saying, hold on, let's not act irrational. Let's talk, let's negotiate, let's de-escalate, let's not escalate. Do you believe that politicians like Lindsey Graham and Mike McConnell would be saying, hold on, let's de-escalate? Do you believe that? You know they would not have done that. This is a front. This is an affront to international law and an attack on the entire Western world and an attack on America itself. Today, they may have done such and such, but tomorrow they'll feel our wrath. And then war would have commenced. Right? So that's that exceptional mind state. I can kill you. I can assassinate you. I can ignore international law. I can violate international law. I can violate and pull out of treaties. I can do that because I'm a Western nation, I'm an American, or I am an ally of America, and you just got to deal with it. All right? So, using that example, and we're going to throw back on Russia again. If you know, we got people ready to secede from the Union. You got all of these movements from the U.S., right? And And you have these drug cartels that are in, they say in Mexico, right? What if Russia decides to open and say, we're going to bag them? We're going to give them air defense systems. We're going to give them Su-30 fighters. We're going to give them the Iskander missiles, right? We're going to give them all of that because we believe in them seceding from the United States and the land that they're in, that's their sovereign land. And then Russia proceeds to give them those weapons, and one of those missiles strike a city in America proper. What do you think the response would be? Do you think they would just be talking about, we will respond, we reserve the right to respond? See, again, in the halls of power in Russia, some of them still want to be a part of the West. So they don't want to escalate, but they're not escalating. You're responding. You're responding. Escalation and responding are two different things. They can be, they don't have to be mutually exclusive, but they're two different things. The U.S. has escalated over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you have allowed that to happen over and over and over and over and over again. And as the saying goes, which is attributed to Albert Einstein, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of what? Insanity. So either you have insane politicians, not all, but some, that are preventing a rational response to constant escalation. Or you have an entire group of inept leaders. And we know that the Russian leadership is not inept. So it has to be the latter. I mean, the former, right? Right? Do you believe that America would allow that to take place? She would have, look, when the false flag operation 9/11 took place, right? And we know that, man, I'm telling you, StreamYard, you tripping, man. You are tripping. I'm trying to do a show. You continue to buffer me. You continue to pause when I hit a button to play something. You're pausing it and you're slowing it down. Stop it. Because I'm going to tell it on the air. I'm going to let the people know exactly where it's coming from. If it's YouTube, I'm going to tell them it's YouTube. If it's StreamYard, I'm going to tell them it's StreamYard so that they can know who is doing what. Okay? So listen. When the false flag operation of 9/11 took place, and George Bush says, you hear us today, but tomorrow all of them will hear us, right? Even though this was a false flag operation used to wage war and to cement United States dominance across the globe under the guise of fighting terror, right? They supposedly struck back at the so-called terrorists, right? Even though we know that some of these people are still alive. We know that these the ones that they said were terrorists were trained openly in the United States, right? And what's amazing about these false flag terror attacks, this is what's crazy about this, right? So I want to put this on your mind as we're talking about all of this stuff. That have you ever thought about the fact that immediately when now they don't see the attack coming now, the so-called most informative intelligence agencies and the greatest funded intelligence apparatus on the planet, right? All of these alphabet soups of intelligence, right? They don't see the planning of the operation. But immediately when the thing takes place and the operation is underway, the United States knows every participant, their family connection, where they worked at all their lives and every job that they had, or if they were disgruntled, all of this stuff comes to light like that after. Not before, bow, but after. And then it's ironic that, and we're going to continue talking about this other stuff, but since I'm on this, I have to bring this up. And it's ironic that when the so-called towers were hit, and a plane melted steel beams now. And here's something else. Months later, there was a plane crash, I believe, in Indonesia. They hit a building. The building didn't collapse. The building did not fall. The fire was contained to a couple floors. That is something, and it was a high rise, taller than the towers in New York. So now look, it hit the buildings. The fire was supposedly so intense that it melted the steel beams that are made to withstand 1,500 degree temperature, right? It melted that. And yet CBS, go look at this. I'm not making this up. Within an hour or two of this taking place, CBS, or I think it was CBS, reported that they had found a passport lying on the ground from one of the so-called terrorists in one of the planes. It blew the plane up, killed all the occupants, blew the building up, melted the steel, collapsed the building, and a passport with paper and ink on it survived. Man, if you don't get the flip out of here with that, stop it. Stop insulting people's intelligence. All right? Let's see. The White Anderson, salute to you. Bless you, my brother, for telling the truth. You know, hey, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for giving me your time, because remember, as I often say, time is the rarest and most treasured commodity because it's a non-renewable commodity. So when you give your time, make sure that you get an equal or greater return for your time, because once it's used up, you can never get it back. Okay? Now, think about these things. I said this on the previous show. All of these protests you see in Ukraine, you see in Georgia, you see in Hong Kong, you see in Taiwan, you see in South Korea, you see in Japan, you see all over the place where these people speak the language, the native tongue of those lands. And most don't understand or cannot proficiently speak English. Why is it that the signs are always in English? Huh? Because they have an agenda. They're speaking to an audience because they want to gain support at home. These are plants so that they can show this stuff all across Western news, so that they can get public outrage and uproar over the situation, so that they can then justify intervention in the matters of a sovereign territory. You understand? I mean, we're trapped in the matrix. These people are full of it. Like they used to say, full of more excrement than a Christmas turkey, right? You know, on the real. So again, and let me highlight this real quick. Let me go back. I'm sorry, you guys. It's a delay now on my dashboard on StreamYard. It's not a delay on my dashboard on YouTube, but there's a delay on the main dashboard on StreamYard. Usually it's not, right? Usually it's the other way around. But for the last 2 days, it's been StreamYard. Okay. So hopefully, now I pressed the button to highlight his comment a while ago, and watch, it's just coming up now. All the while, let me show you something. Again, see, I like to prove what I'm saying. Let's go here. All the while, let's see, move this out of the way. Let me show you guys something. All the while, look at the bottom of the screen down here where the connection is. Hold on, let me see. Excellent connection. Excellent connection. You see? So they're playing games. They're still playing games. But again, we've got to become more rational. We've got to think through these things now. You got to understand that the Western world is dying a natural death. The system is dying. They want to make you believe in the system, right? Even as it's dying. This is the crazy thing about it. Think about this. As the system dies, the reality of the situation becomes more apparent to you. The corruption, the arrogance, the racist, the fascism in the system, the parasitic core and nature of the system, as the system goes into convulsions and starts hemorrhaging because it is losing out on everything. The true state of the system becomes more apparent to those who are affected by the system or who has lived underneath the jurisdiction of the system. So in the midst of this, we're finding inequality in greater amounts. Homelessness is exploding. Now, the West claims to be the richest part of the world. They're what they call the industrialized world, right? Right? And everybody else is the second and the third and the fourth world, right? And yet, in this first world of technological prowess, economic riches, and so-called political and military stability, it has the greatest inequality ratio on the planet. And then when you start pointing this out, guess what they do? They go to the bottom of the barrel and they find a disagreement, just like they do in other countries. They find dissatisfied and they get you to focus on that and that to focus on you so that you guys can beef while they continue to hold the reins of power and authority and enjoy the riches and the wealth of the system. We continue to find out that the system is an untenable, unviable situation. That's why you have now nations flocking towards anything that offers them a semblance of territorial and national independence and sovereignty. Anything that offers them the glimpse of economic and political autonomy and sovereignty. So now you see all of these organizations and all of these groupings starting to form outside of the domination of the Western world. And while this is taking place, guess what happens? It becomes a more violent world because the world that has ruled and has ruled by any means necessary sees that their rule is fleeting and they desire to continue their rule. What does the United States say? What does the UK say? The rules-based order. We see China as a threat to the rules-based order. I've already given you the definition of the rules-based order. I've given you the definition that they have given for the rules-based order. Okay? It's not my definition, it's their definition. I gave it to you on yesterday's show. All right? So now, I'm trying to see what's up with Greg. What's up with Greg? If Greg doesn't hurry up, we're going to have to reschedule this. Anyway, so they see their world falling. And because they've ruled so long, they do not want anybody else to rule. And it is plain as the skin on your body or the clothes on your body. Think about this. And I'm telling you, these people are insane. They're crazy as hell. They have come to the conclusion that if they can't rule, they're going to kill everybody. People, oh, no, they wouldn't do that. Then why would they invest so much money in nuclear weapons? Why would they invest so much money in conventional arms when the people are suffering in their own borders? Because the job of the government, right, is to secure the livelihood and the security of the people that they govern. And if you have 10%, 20% unemployment, 10%, 20% homeless, right? How in the world can you then think that your enemy is abroad when you are fighting an enemy within that it may be slow to gallop, but when it gallops at a pace that will overrun you? Homelessness, poverty, right? The increase between the haves and the have-nots. And yet you're focusing trillions of dollars on weapons. Listen to me good. Listen to this. They say they want peace and security while making warships. Good morning, No Way Out. Salute, No Way Out. Warships. They say they want to build up a better and just world while making and building and investing billions of dollars in destroyers. They say that this is for the defense of the nation while promoting, testing, and then using attack gunships and helicopters. Huh? Is that for peace? Huh? Destroyers. Right? Gunships, attack helicopters. Those are not for peace. The name is saying what they are to be for. And all while the masses of the people in America, in Europe, and around the globe are suffering because of these policies that are being imposed on these nations and the globe for the benefit of a few. Make that make sense? So we're looking at the collapse of capitalism. Well, what you going to turn to? You're going to turn to fascism? You're going to turn to socialism? No. But if you get some good minds together, and you get some just minds and some fair minds together, you'll be amazed at the systems and the organizations that can be brought into being, especially out of the longing of the masses of the people who have suffered from an exploitative system. Right? Because remember, before that system was there was a system that preceded it. They want you to believe that this is the only viable and tenable system and situation that the world could have to enjoy peace and stability and riches, when in reality, the majority of the world does not enjoy peace, stability, nor riches. Huh? I want anybody to point out one lie that I said. One. If you can point out one lie that I said, I'll eat the Bible or the Holy Quran without salt and pepper. I'll swallow it. Point out one lie. I'm telling you these things because everybody else refuses to tell you this. They omit these things because they want subscribers, they want followers, instead of wanting for the people what they want for themselves. I want you to be enriched here. I want you to start using this up here so that they can exploit you or get over on you, right? Or use your misgivings or your suspicions about something else to keep you from helping to build or bring in something better. Let's see. No Way Out says, let's see. Yeah, I talked on that yesterday. Let me put this on the screen. No Way Out. Now look, it popped up for No Way Out. The U.S. just sent a second nuclear submarine to Korea, and it provokes the North. Same as Iran, where the U.S. just sent a couple of battleships over there. Well, listen, if they're announcing this, but in my channel membership, I already talked about this stuff here a week or two ago. There was a big buildup, and most people didn't understand what I was saying. That the United States, while everybody was focusing on Ukraine, I was telling everybody that there's a big redeployment of troops, radars, missiles, warships, and armament to the MENA region, MENA, the Middle Eastern North African region, because they believe that there's an imminent threat for war or regional war to take place there. I've been telling everybody that, but let me go to something here. What you said here. Let's see. I'll get to that coming in just a second. You say the U.S. just sent a second nuke sub to Korea, and it provokes the North. More than that, listen, for the eyes of the average person, it is meant to provoke the North. But this is a message to China and Russia, because most people don't realize that China and Russia border North Korea. This is why America refuses to remove her bases from the South. It's not about preserving the South Korean territorial integrity. It's not about preserving South Korea's independence. They have little to no independence because America has military control over their military. In a time of war, they are subjugated to the U.S. War Command. Go look it up. What this is about is to put pressure on the North, and by extension, put pressure on China and Russia. Because think about this. In Central Asia, America has been in where? Pakistan. She's been in where? Kyrgyzstan. She's been in where? Kazakhstan. She's been in where? Afghanistan, right? She tried to use Georgia. So now we're looking, and they've just brought in some of the Nordic nations or bringing them in to NATO. So now you look at a ring from Europe down through the Caucasus, down through Asia, around, and then you look at India, which is a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and also a member of the BRICS nation, a few years ago signed a basing agreement with the United States where the United States has the right to use India's military facilities, and India has the right to use America's military facilities. And then they reaffirmed that by signing another agreement that each one of them are semi-allies, war allies. I'm telling you this now. So now you have a swoop from North Europe all the way through Asia. I mean, all the way through the Caucasus, all the way through Central and South Asia. And now let's go around. America opens up bases in the Philippines, Australia, right? She has them in Japan. She has them in Korea. Is that not right? She's trying to force some of the Pacific islands, the small, weak islands, to allow her basing rights there, right? This is to hem in China and to prevent China's breakout military capacity, and also to put pressure on Russia from all sides. And by sending the second nuclear submarine to Korea, it puts undue strain on North Korea, because every time North Korea has to act and they don't have the military the economic wherewithal to continue major responses, and America is trying to break the economy. She feels if I break the economy, I can break the military. And if I break the military, then people will flee to the South, which would justify South Korea sending military assets into the North to secure the northern port of Korea, right? Which would in turn move U.S. military bases right up to Russia and China's borders, right there. And in turn, secure all of the untapped oil, gas, rare earth minerals, and natural resources that they found that North Korea has. And remember that America says that they have to find an alternative to China, because China controls 90 to 95% of all rare earth minerals, right? And America needs this in everything from warships to video games to phones to everything. China has already put some sanctions on the U.S. because the U.S. tried to put sanctions on China through the chip making process. You need rare earths for that too. But they did a study, geological study on North Korea, and they found that they have huge amounts of untapped oil, gas, gold, silver, and rare earth minerals. So if they can collapse the North, they push their boundaries up to the Chinese-Russian border, plus they secure what they are lacking in gold, oil, gas, and rare earth minerals. That's what they're trying to do. And then guess what happens? It gives new life to the US dollar, and it gives new life to the Western Empire. And then it also helps them to suppress a rising and assertive and independent China, while they believe it will cow Russia. That's what they're going for. So let me put up another puppet state. South Korea is a puppet state of U.S. famous. Well, let me put this up here real quick. What a strange view of U.S. All right, yeah, that's a good point you made. Let me put this up here. That is a very good point you made. No Way Out says, what a strange view of the U.S. elite. Cuba is a socialist state under sanctions over 60 years and have only 0.12% of homeless people. Housing is a fundamental right in Cuba. Now, you know what? in a lot of these so-called third world nations, housing is a fundamental right. I remember Hugo Chavez, the late great Hugo Chavez, and now under his predecessor, Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. They made it a human rights issue that people are afforded the right to have a place to live in, a house. So under Maduro, they have built over 5 million domiciles for people poor under sanctions, under U.S. sanctions. And even as the U.S. stole its currency holdings, the Citcos, you notice that they're closing down the Citcos, and you have these Cumberlands. Those Citcos were were a subsidiary of Venezuela. The U.S. stole the assets of Venezuela. Most people didn't even know that. Okay? Now, but you look at Britain, there's a report. Let me see something real quick. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull this up. Give me a second, you guys, since we're talking about the UK. Let's go to the UK real quick. Let's go here. All right, yeah, found it right on the money. So we see homelessness. Remember a report by the U.S. government that I talked about yesterday and the day before that? A U.S. report said that it would take $20 billion to eradicate homelessness completely across the U.S. They don't have money for that. They can give almost $200 billion to Ukraine to fight war. And they just announced another $400 million aid package for Ukraine. Yet they will not give debt relief to students who are the future leaders, politicians, doctors, lawyers, astronomers, scientists, and astronauts of the country. So these people are living under a debt burden that they can never hardly clear themselves under. So how can you have a prosperous future when your future leaders have to worry about debt instead of worrying about building a prosperous future or advancement in technology and science and education and economics? You are killing your own progress. You understand? You're shooting off your nose, your eyes, your lips, your tongue, your ears in spite of your face. This is what the West does. They don't think things through like that. Now, we talk about the U.S. and the growing poverty. We're talking about the Western world. Look at what happened in this article. It talks about the UK homeless rate. Remember what I often tell you all? When we say America, when we say the U.S., you can mirror it back with the UK. Whatsoever the U.S. is suffering, the UK too is suffering. These two are the daughters of Babylon. Go read your scripture. It'll tell you Babylon had daughters coming up after her, and they were rich and powerful, right? All right. And they enjoyed all of the luxuries of life and influence. And one day God put his hand on them. And there was no throne for them no more. It said, come down and sit in the dust. There's no throne for them anymore. All the riches, all the influence, and all the power was taken from them. So that's not right. What is going on in America? What is going on with the UK? Huh? They have mirrored policies. And they're suffering the mirrored fallout effect of those policies. And you don't see one in a military conflict without seeing the other. The daughters of Babylon. So, listen, homelessness rate in UK hit 5-year high as cost of living crisis deepens. I'm reading this for the first time with you all. I remembered this headline. That's why I put it in there. I remembered it. And it's just so happened that we're talking about homelessness and poverty and stuff like that. So listen. And again, we're waiting on, I'm trying to stay on the air to wait for Greg. He moved from his place of residence in another state and he moved to Florida. And he could have had the times wrong because he's used to Eastern time. And when he moved, we're on Central time. And so he could have had the times wrong. And so I'm trying to wait to see if he'll make it on the air today. If not, we're going to do a reboot to get him on. Okay? I don't do clickbait. I don't do that. Okay? Just like I told you all when Larry was supposed to be on yesterday, in the first few minutes we couldn't get him on, and then we got him on because he said that they were bought. He didn't get the links, even though we sent them multiple times, and he said finally they went through. So there's a concerted effort to keep the show down, so they'll try to prevent guests like Larry and guests like Greg and other guests from coming on the show. Hell, they wiped out 100 subscribers from my subscriber count last night. All right, so let's go here. It says the homeless rate across England is at its highest since 2018 due to government policies. Did I tell you that? Which have forced a record number of families to live in temporary accommodations, according to official figures. According to the official government data, and we know that they're lying, but because they can't really tell you just how bad it is, but let's look at what they're willing to admit to. It says, according to the official government data for January to March, published on Tuesday, around 79,840 households were owed help from local authorities to address homelessness or the risk of homelessness, as experts blame a shameful lack of social housing. We're not going to read anymore. I just want you to see that just like America is suffering, the UK is so. These so-called first world rich nations who can always find money for escapades in Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, West Asia, and Asia can't find money for their own citizens who they're supposed to represent. It's not a national security threat for your population to be homeless and to be hungry and to be out of work. But it's a national security interest 2,000 miles away because China wants to get back its territory that you took from it. It's not a national security threat of the growing and the spike in violence in the UK and the US because of lack of opportunities, lack of proper education. But it's a security threat that Russia is trying to secure its border because you want to put bases in Ukraine, thousands of miles away from your shores, I might add. That's a national security threat that warrants $200 billion plus. But growing homelessness, hunger, strife, disillusionment, unemployment within your own borders, that's not a national security threat. Man, if you don't get out of here with this madness, I'm telling you. See, they can't talk down to me. I'm sorry. If you know better, you should do better. Whether that's a person, an organization, or a government. They know better. They have access to all of the information and even more than we do. Yet they still won't do better because it's not beneficial policies. It's not beneficial to their organizations, their think tanks, their families. So you keep the masses in poverty, the masses fighting with each other while you enjoy all of the good things. Man, stop this insanity. And you wonder why the Western world is imploding. Huh? Think about this. The nations that they call third world and fourth world nations. These nations have a dedication to traditional families, well, traditional in their sense of traditional. Like some are tribal, right? And some are married to one person, but they have a dedication to their family, their customs, their culture, their religions. And when you look at the West, I'm non-binary. Hell, I'm an alien. They come up with everything. And then at the same time want you to believe that they're God-fearing while passing all the laws that are the antithesis to being God-fearing. They want to rip you of your culture, your understanding of things, and then they put it back to you and make you think that you're out of place, out of time, and out of luck. When you have morals and ethics and principles, they want to remove the morality that you have, the ethics that you have, and the principles that you were raised on. Let me remove. A woman should be able to go in a man's bathroom, and a man should be able to go in a woman's bathroom. And there's no such thing as a man and woman. It's no such thing as the sex or man, get out of here with that stuff. And when you call them on it, right, they censor you, deplatform you, demonize you, right, dehumanize you, because they want you to be sick in the head. Like, look, I'm glad I just said that. I want you to understand something. These people are insane. They are sick in the head. Let me pull up something for you all. There we are. Now, according to the dictionary, the word insane is an adjective, and it means in a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction, seriously mentally ill, right? Similar words, mentally ill, severely mentally disordered, of unsound mind, certifiable. Outrageous and shocking. If the policies that the West have enacted are not the core of what that word means, tell me what is. Huh? Because you keep saying, well, why would they escalate? Why would they do this? Why are they in everybody's business? And then you look at their behavior and their social interaction with nations, governments, leaders, and peoples, and their perception of how things should be. We can say that they're seriously mentally ill, right? According to the definition. And we can see that there's a severe mental disorder with the leadership of these nations. And most leaders show themselves because of the policies. We know because of the policies and because of the policies that they advocate that they are of unsound mind, because the policies are not sound. If you have an unsound mind, you don't produce sound policies. Show me a sound policy that the UK and the US have instituted globally or nationally that is beneficial to the masses. And if you can't, then that means that they're unsound, mentally ill, right? Certifiable. And then it becomes so shocking to those who are rooted in stability, ethics, morality, right? And principle. And so the more the policies they institute, the more shocking, the more outrageous it becomes. That is the definition of insane. Okay? I mean, we're looking, Google it. Go to Google, put in the words meaning of insane. Scroll down to dictionary, which is the first one, and look at what they say about insane. I'm not making this up. I know it because it fits to the very letter and T. You say, man, he has to make that up. I'm doing this on the spot. These people are insane. The policies are insane and unsound. That's why nothing that they do is working. You know why it's not working? Because it's unsound. And how can somebody that is unsound up here produce sound and rational policies? I'm asking. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not the fork, the spoon, or the butter knife. Okay? Now, I want you to look at this. I put in something called U.S. sovereign debt. We're not going to go into the hundreds of trillions that they owe. We're not going to go into the quadrillions in derivatives. We're not going to go into none of that. We're not going to go into the off-book budget accounting practices of the U.S. We're going to go with what they offer right here as the definition. Okay? U.S. sovereign debt. Now, while we're talking about that, remember 200 billion plus in Ukrainian aid. Only would take 20 billion to eradicate homelessness completely in the U.S. and another 20 billion to eradicate poverty completely in America. Right? So you would still be up 160 plus billion dollars if you just took those 20 twice, which is 40 billion, and eradicated poverty and homelessness. Now, why haven't they done that? They must see some benefit of not eradicating poverty and homelessness. for a government and for government leaders not to do something that is sound, they must see something else. They must not want you on their level. They must not want you free of worry about a place to stay, food to eat, medicine to get, and living a better life. Because if you're preoccupied with that, you cannot focus all your attention on government policies and institutional injustices. But if you're preoccupied with that, right, the government gets a free hand to do what they're doing. You can protest, you can raise your voice, but they know that you need to work. They know that you need to find employment. They know that you need to find medicine. They know that you need to pay bills. So they're not too worried about your protestations. As my friend said, as my friend made that word up. So I told him I was going to steal it. But your protestations, right? Because they know that you don't have the time, the money, or really the effort to put everything in it to come against them. So look at this. As of February 2023, now we're going into the month of August, the hottest month of the year. We're going into the month of August. This is July 28th. We're heading into the month of August. As of February 2023, total federal debt was $31.5 trillion. 24.6 trillion held by the public and 6.9 trillion in intra-governmental debt. Now, it says in December 2021, debt held by the public 15% of GDP, and approximately 33% of this public debt was owned by foreigners, government and private. Now, your economy is faltering. Your production has dissipated. Your tax revenues have collapsed, right? You're trading in deficits with everybody. You have trade deficits with everybody. You're not producing anything but guns, movies, and dollars. That's it. And the movies continue to be remakes. The guns continue to jam. Your warplanes continue to crash. Your warships continue to be towed to port. And your dollars are rejected. So now, wouldn't it be more sound, more reasonable, more sane to invest that money that you invested in Ukraine into education, debt relief, homelessness, poverty, right? And then if there's anything thereafter, if you have hegemonic plans for Ukraine, then invest what's left. Because the national security threat is at home. I continue to tell you that beautiful African proverb that I often refer to, right? And it talks about if there is no enemy in, the enemy without can do you no harm. So if you focus on home and you take care of home, which is the number one priority of every government, every leader, every institution of a nation, you don't have to too much worry about the enemy outside, because you would have created such a cohesive, unified front at home that it would strike fear into those abroad that, hey, we might not want to test them because they're all unified, because they're all moving towards an agreed goal or agreed agenda. And if we interrupt that, the government would have the full backing of the masses of the people, because the masses of the people will then see that they have a lot to lose. But in a situation like this, they see that they have little to nothing to lose because the government is ignoring their interests and their security concerns. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. So let me go into the comments real quick. Man, I'm going to contact Greg in a few minutes after the show, okay? I'm going to contact him and see what's the deal. Let's see. Whoa! Let's see. No way out. You say 3% of the military budget could end homelessness in the U.S.? No, Even less than that, because we got to understand that there are all of those military appropriations, all of those emergency appropriations, all of that funny money, backdoor, off the bookkeeping stuff. No, it's less than that. It's less than that. And they still won't do it. Why? Because they don't see any benefit of doing it. They see a benefit in listen, the people at the helm in Washington who are trying to promote these wars of aggression, they want to remain the supreme powers. They have these dynasties like the Rodhams, the Rodhams. Hillary Rodham Clinton, she came from a thug family too. Dope dealers, dope pushers. I think of Polish or that region. She's originally from that region. You see, Newland, she's from around that region. Her family has roots in that region. Blinken, you see all of these people who continue to push these policies of trying to balkanize and destroy Russia. They have an inherent hatred towards Russia because of something that took place 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and their families, the institutions that were organized by the families, can't let it go. So they use organizations to infiltrate government, to push policy so that they can enact their policies that they've had in them for the longest on the nations. Okay, that's what goes on. These same people see China as a threat. Again, why is China a threat? Is China waging war? No. Is China threatening to wage war? No. Why is China a threat? And I hear this in a lot of circles. China is unfair competition. What is more unfair than having the world's reserve currency where you can manipulate interest rates, you can manipulate policy, therefore causing the spike in prices of food, oil, and commodities, overthrowing governments and institutions? What is more unfair than that? Now, they see China as a threat because China would not cow to their threats and their will. They see China as a threat because China is not a Western nation. They see China as a threat because it is a non-white nation. And by definition of the rules-based order, go look at the definition of it. Like I told you, as a matter of fact, I referred you back to the video from yesterday and the video from the day before yesterday. We read the definition of that. And by definition, they cannot allow China to rise because it is a non-white, non-Western nation. And they will not submit to a non-white nation. They do not want anybody challenging the West's domination, the West dominion, the West ideals. That's why they say our ideals and values. And this is unacceptable. It's one thing for Russia. They don't consider Russia to be white. They call them orcs, snow niggas. Right? It's another thing for a completely non-white nation, China, with a population of 1.5 billion people, to ascend to power and outside the control of the Western world. How dare they do this? How dare? And think about this. Russia has the largest nuclear armament on planet Earth by miles, and it is not even close, not even with the United States. Russia has more nuclear weapons than all of NATO nations, including the United States combined. Russia has that. But America's Defense Department, America's State Department, America's Congress, and America's president and the executive branch said that they see China as the more immediate, pressing threat and danger to U.S. dominance and national security. Make that make sense if they don't see color in that. Huh? Make it make sense. I'm asking. So, man, I'm telling you, oh man, I'm telling you, it's something else. These people, and they see something else. They see these institutions being put together outside of Western dominance. They don't like that. They don't like that, right? I'm going to do a program. I might come back tonight and do a program. I'm gonna try to get off the air and I'm gonna try to hit Greg up. I'm gonna try to hit him up and see what's going on here, and then we'll try to reschedule and immediately get you guys the information that I promised you. We're gonna try to do that, okay? And then I'll try, if I have some time, to do that video tonight for the channel members and for patrons. Please support all of the platform. Go sign up to the locals. It's free. The empowermentoftruth.locals.com. Just look up the Red Pill Diaries. Go to Odyssey. Go to Rumble. Go to, I guess my son put Twitter up here. Go to Facebook. You know I'm not used to this stuff. I think he even put up Spotify. I guess we're going to be doing it on Spotify too. Go to Patreon. But go to these platforms because I'm not getting the proper push in the YouTube algorithm or its engine. I'm getting suppressed, but I'm going to continue to do this until they throw me off of here. So listen, I thank you all for joining me, for giving me the pleasure of serving you with truth. I thank you because you gave me your time. And for that, I respect you, I honor you, and I thank you because I know that's the most precious commodity. Because you are a lover of the truth, know that I love you, but know that the true and living God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And I thank each and every one of you for every second and every minute and even every hour that we spend together chatting on truth. Speaking on the truth, talking about the truth can do nothing but make you better men and women in the eyes of God. Love you all, but hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I'm out of here. I really, really, really appreciate it.